Life can be compared to a two-way street. Traffic could be going out, traffic could also be coming in. And when I'm referring to traffic, that could represent the energy or the effort. It could also connect with the relationships that we have. Now, depending on where you live, you could be experiencing the earlier part of fall, where temperature starts to go down. Now, of course, based off of your life experience, temperature is kind of relative. Why is it that I have on this hoodie? Because my body naturally produces heat. What is heat? Heat deals with thermal energy, and thermal energy is produced by vibrating particles. Everything in our universe is made up of particles. The faster those particles move, the warmer that object becomes. The slower they move, the cooler that object becomes. The reason that I'm talking about that with my hoodie on and the temperature decreasing, this hoodie in science could be described or compared to an insulator. So it traps that heat, or it traps that thermal energy on my body to keep my body warm. And heat always travels from hot to cold, for example, and one room had heat that was on and the other room was absent of heat. If I were to open a door that connected those two rooms, heat will go from one room to the next, but it's not gonna all leave. What's gonna happen is once heat gets to the other room and there's a balance between the two rooms, that transfer of heat will stop because now both rooms are the same temperature. Unfortunately, that concept does not always apply in life. Once again, an insulator is something that traps that thermal energy. It keeps it in. Insulators are typically made up of things like rubber or plastic, but then there's something that does allow thermal energy or heat to travel through it well, and that's known as a conductor. Now, I know I'm having a little bit more science talk, but remember, I'm a teacher, not a speaker, so I just have to break this down just a little bit. Objects that are more dense, that means its particles are closer together, we could say are actually focused. That allows for things to flow and travel more. But what happens is objects that tend to be less dense, or their particles are more spread out, less focused, less organized, they will not allow that heat or thermal energy to travel well. Let's tie this into our life. I mentioned conductors and I mentioned insulators because of the temperature going down, right? When it comes to our life, I simply want to say we have to be mindful what we allow into our space. And we also need to be mindful of what is it that we're releasing. We can release support, we can release effort, we can release energy. However, we cannot keep releasing it. We have to establish our own borders simply because we can allow energy or our efforts to continually flow, just like they do through a conductor. We have to establish a boundary which serves like an insulator, meaning that we have to make sure that we maintain our core temperature. A human, for example, has an average temperature of 98.6 degrees. If I step outside and it's 30 degrees, guess what? Heat is going to want to leave my body. As I said earlier, heat is that transfer of thermal energy, and it always wants to go from hot, which is my body, to the cold, which is the outside temperature. So if I step outside right now, my jacket is serving as my insulator. This is my boundary. This is my barrier. This is protecting my body. However, my hands are out. So that means this cut down on that release, but now I got thermal energy leaving from my hands, leaving from my head. If I throw on my hood, now I'm trapping in more thermal energy. If I were to put my hands in my sleeves or put on gloves, then I'm trapping in more thermal energy. Once again, functioning as an insulator. There is a time for us to release. There is a time for us to put forth effort and support, but do not allow it to reach a point where it just leaves, because you will reach a point where your core temperature will get so cold that your body will shut down. That's almost the equivalent of somebody going through hypothermia and unfortunately losing their life. It gets real like that. So as I said earlier, life can be compared to a two-way street. We have conductors, which are those avenues or channels for what we put out to travel. And we also need to be open to receive. However, we need to establish our own sense and our own level of insulation to protect ourselves. We do not want to deplete our energy, deplete our effort. We want to protect our body. We want to protect our mind, our families, our household, our organization, anything that we consider to have value or a resource. We can release it, we can share, we can collaborate, but make sure that you establish that layer of insulation. That way we do not release too much, because just like heat wants to keep releasing thermal energy. And sometimes you're not gonna always get that balance. You're not gonna always have other boundaries. What's gonna happen is it's just gonna keep leaving you until you're depleted. Remember, I'm a teacher, not a speaker. Have an amazing day.